before going any further, something needs to be set straight. When you hear the title of this conversation, Russia offering to take Iran's uranium, America staying silent, it's easy to jump to the wrong conclusion. Silence feels like hesitation, like somewhere deep inside the White House or the State Department or the National Security Council, analysts are weighing the gamble, asking whether letting Russia take control of Iran's enriched uranium is a risk worth taking. But that picture is false. Completely. America didn't stay silent. It answered, just not where cameras could see. And that answer, reported by Axios in March and quietly confirmed by multiple US officials, was a flat no. Trump didn't hesitate. He didn't stall. He shut it down directly, on a phone call. Putin made the offer. Trump rejected it. End of conversation. Except it wasn't the end. Because on April 13th, Russia brought it back into the light. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov stepped in front of reporters and repeated the proposal as if nothing had happened. He said Putin had made this offer in discussions with both the United States and regional powers. Then he added something chilling. The offer still stands, but it has not been acted upon. That line, delivered publicly after a private rejection, after the Islamabad talks collapsed, after the blockade tightened, wasn't routine diplomacy. It was calculated, deliberate, a move on a board most people don't even realize they're looking at. And if you understand what kind of move it was, you understand far more about Russia's role in this war than anything else reported this week. So let's break it down carefully. Because what Russia is doing operates on three distinct layers, and each one cuts deeper than the last. Start with the uranium itself. Most coverage treats it like background noise, numbers, percentages, technical jargon, but that's a mistake. This isn't a side detail. It's the core of everything. The uranium is the story. Everything else is leverage. Iran currently holds roughly 450 kilograms of uranium enriched to about 60%. Weapons grade sits above 90%. 60% isn't there yet, but with modern centrifuges, the gap between 60 and 90 isn't measured in years anymore. It's measured in weeks. US and Israeli officials have already said that this stockpile, if pushed further, could produce more than 10 nuclear weapons. Not one, not two, 10. That's not a bargaining chip. That's a strategic arsenal waiting to exist. When Operation Epic Fury began on February 28th, the target was clear: cripple Iran's nuclear capability. Natanz was hit, Fordo was hit, Isfahan was struck. CIA Director John Ratcliffe later said the damage would take years to rebuild. But here's the part that changes everything. None of that destruction touched the uranium itself. The 450 kilograms of 60% enriched material survived because Iran moved it before the bombs ever fell. Defense Secretary Hegseth admitted it publicly. The stockpile is now buried underground. The US has a rough idea of where it is, but rough doesn't win wars. And until someone physically controls that uranium, the central issue this war was supposed to solve remains dangerously unresolved. That's the reality Putin stepped into when he made his offer. And in that context, the proposal becomes something far more serious than it first appears. Russia wasn't just making a suggestion. It was presenting itself as the only actor capable of solving the hardest problem in this conflict, without US troops, without forcing Iran into visible surrender. The message was simple: give us the uranium. We'll take responsibility. We've done it before. And that last part isn't propaganda, it's history. Under the 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA, Iran's low-enriched uranium was physically transferred out of the country, and Russia was the one that received it. Stored it, managed it. Russia is one of the few nations on Earth with the infrastructure, expertise, and political positioning to safely handle material this close to weapons grade from another country. This isn't theory, it's precedent. So why did Trump refuse? That question cuts straight to the heart of the war, and it deserves more than the easy answer. The obvious explanation is trust, or rather, the lack of it. Handing Iran's uranium to Russia doesn't eliminate the threat, it relocates it. If the goal is to permanently neutralize Iran's nuclear capability, then moving the material onto Russian soil doesn't achieve that. Russia isn't an ally. In fact, throughout this war, it has quietly supported Iran. Even Trump admitted as much in March, saying, "I think Putin might be helping them a little bit." And that raises a brutal contradiction. Why would the US allow a country that may be aiding Iran to also become the custodian of Iran's most dangerous asset? That argument holds weight. Real weight, but under pressure it starts to crack because the alternatives aren't cleaner, they're worse. Option 1, Iran willingly hands over the uranium to the US or the IAEA. That's been tried repeatedly. Oman, Rome, Islamabad, 21 hours of talks that went nowhere. Iran has been unwavering. From Foreign Minister Araghchi to Atomic Energy Chief Mohammad Eslami, the message has been identical. Iran will not give up its right to enrich uranium, and it will not remove its stockpile from its own soil. This isn't negotiation, it's a red line tied directly to political survival. Any Iranian leader who agrees to that doesn't just lose power, they risk everything. That's why Islamabad failed. Not because of technical disagreements, but because of a fundamental question Iran refuses to bend on. Option 2, the US and Israel try to take or destroy the uranium by force. It's technically on the table, as Hegseth confirmed, but the reality is far messier. Finding, reaching, and neutralizing hundreds of kilograms of buried material inside Iran during a fragile ceasefire isn't a clean operation. It's a nightmare scenario. The June 2025 strikes already proved something critical. Even a coordinated bombing campaign couldn't eliminate the uranium. Iran moved it once. It can move it again. A second attempt wouldn't look like airstrikes. It would start to resemble a ground operation inside Iranian territory. And that's a line even the most aggressive voices in Washington aren't openly crossing. Option 3, the ceasefire collapses, diplomacy fails, and the US is left with a choice. Accept Iran's possession of the uranium as permanent, or return to bombing campaigns that already failed to solve the problem. Those are the options, none of them clean, none of them certain. Against that backdrop, Russia's proposal stands out, not as perfect, but as the only mechanism that physically removes the material from Iran without forcing a visible surrender. Iran wouldn't be handing it to America. It would be transferring it to a partner, something that could be reframed domestically as strategy, not defeat. And still Trump said no, which means nothing improved. The same 3 impossible paths remained exactly where they were before Putin ever made the call. Now we get to the most important question, the one buried inside all of this. Russia made the offer, America rejected it, and then Russia repeated it anyway in public for the world to hear. Why? Because when you repeat an offer after it's been refused, you're not trying to persuade the person who said no anymore. Their mind about the proposal. That phase is over. What's happening now is something far more calculated. The offer isn't about persuasion anymore. It's a tool. A weapon, just not the kind that explodes. Let's break down exactly how Russia is using it. First, Russia is recasting itself as the reasonable actor in a war defined by chaos. By repeating the proposal publicly, after being rejected behind closed doors, Moscow is planting a flag in the historical record. It's saying, "We offered a way out." If this ceasefire shatters on April 22nd, if the skies light up again and missiles return, Russia will be able to point back to this moment and say the escalation didn't have to happen. That matters more than it sounds. It shapes how the world assigns blame. It speaks directly to countries across the global south that Russia and China are actively courting. It lands in European capitals where discomfort with Washington's strategy has been growing, even if it's rarely said out loud. By keeping the offer alive in public, Russia is building the narrative it plans to use if diplomacy collapses. Second, Russia is quietly making itself impossible to ignore. Imagine the moment, because it's not far-fetched, when Washington runs out of alternatives and circles back. When someone, somewhere inside the administration says, "We may need to revisit that uranium deal." That single pivot would hand Moscow exactly what it has been chasing since 2022, real leverage over the outcome of the most consequential Middle Eastern conflict in a generation. And Russia can afford to wait. The clock is ticking toward the ceasefire deadline. The blockade hasn't solved the nuclear issue. Every passing day tightens the trap because as options disappear, Russia's proposal starts to look less like a risk and more like the only door left unlocked. Third, and this is where it gets truly strategic, Russia is proving that it cannot be sidelined in how this war ends. Washington has treated this conflict like a contained equation, the US versus Iran, with Pakistan as a logistical bridge. But Russia has been threading itself through every layer of the equation. Intelligence support to Iran, veto power at the United Nations, high-level coordination with China in Beijing, offers to offset China's energy losses from Hormuz disruptions, and now, this uranium proposal, public, persistent, impossible to ignore. Russia may not be fighting on the battlefield the way Iran or the United States is, but it is embedded in every outcome that matters. And by keeping its offer visible after a private rejection, Moscow is sending a message. No resolution happens without us in the room. Step back and look at the sequence, because the pattern becomes unmistakable. Intelligence shared with Iran, a uranium deal proposed, a quiet American rejection, then a public resurrection of that same proposal on April 13th, a diplomatic pivot to Beijing, energy guarantees offered to China, a joint veto at the UN, and an upcoming visit by Putin timed around Trump's planned trip to Beijing. None of this is random. Every move increases Russia's weight in a war it didn't start and hasn't directly fought. With minimal initial investment, it has positioned itself as indispensable to the ending. That's not luck. That's execution. Precise, disciplined, and relentless. And the uranium offer? That's the purest expression of the entire strategy. It carries a simple, devastating implication. The one objective this war was launched to secure, preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, cannot be fully achieved without Russia. They have the infrastructure. They have the precedent from 2015. They have the relationship with Tehran. They have a standing offer. And most importantly, they have time. Time to let Washington discover that its alternatives aren't actually alternatives at all. Diplomats have a phrase for this kind of positioning. They call it keeping the door open. But that doesn't quite capture what's happening here. Russia isn't passively leaving a door ajar. It's standing in the doorway, making sure everyone sees it, pointing to it again and again, insisting it leads somewhere, while the United States stands across the room pretending it doesn't need a door at all. Now the question shifts to what comes next, because April 22nd is approaching fast. Pakistan's army chief is already in Tehran. The White House is projecting cautious optimism, and Russia's uranium offer sits there in full public view, untouched, unresolved, like a key that could unlock everything or prove that no one is willing to use it. There is one scenario, rarely discussed, almost invisible in public reporting, that deserves attention. It's the possibility that America's silence isn't rejection anymore, but negotiation. That behind closed doors the conversation has evolved. That the original no has softened into conditions. Monitoring by the IAEA, verification mechanisms, timelines, inspections. Quiet bargaining over what it would actually take for Washington to accept Moscow as the custodian of Iran's uranium. Because saying that out loud, admitting negotiations with Russia over Iran's nuclear material, would be politically explosive, especially for an administration that has publicly insisted Iran must surrender its uranium without conditions. There's no confirmation this is happening, but Russia's behavior points in that direction, because if Moscow believed the answer was permanently no, the offer would have disappeared. Offers that are dead don't get repeated, they get buried. This one hasn't been buried, it's been amplified, which suggests Russia believes there is a version of this deal the United States will eventually accept, and it's making sure that when Washington arrives at that conclusion, the option is still waiting. So step back to the title, the surface level question. Russia offered. America hasn't officially responded. But here's the deeper truth. Russia doesn't actually need a response. The offer is doing its job regardless. It creates leverage whether it's accepted or not. It shapes the narrative whether the uranium ever moves or not. It demonstrates Russia's centrality whether Washington admits it or not. The sequence is already locked in. Russia made the offer. America rejected it privately. Russia brought it into the open. And now it exists as part of the permanent record of this war. A standing reminder that there was another path, one that Washington chose not to take. 6 days until the ceasefire expires. 450 kilograms of enriched uranium hidden beneath Iranian soil. A blockade that hasn't solved the core issue. A proposal rejected in March, revived in April. Another round of talks that may or may not happen before the clock runs out. And Trump on Fox News Radio in March saying the uranium isn't even a top priority right now. A statement that either reveals the limits of American strategy or exposes a contradiction at the very heart of the war itself. So watch closely. Not the headlines about the blockade, not the routine briefings about the ceasefire. Watch for something more specific. Any signal, public or private, that the U.S. position on where Iran's uranium ends up is starting to shift. Because if that signal appears, it means the rejection in March wasn't the final answer. And it means Russia, by repeating an offer it already knew had been refused, was never guessing. It was waiting.